Bum, bum, bum. I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and gay. And I pity any girl who isn't me today.
La 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 la.
I feel charming, oh so charming, that I hardly can believe I'm real.
La 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 la.
Broadway, as we know it now, is actually one of the oldest pastimes in our country's history, as it existed in New York before we even declared our independence. But the transition into musical theater is actually more of a newer concept, if you can call a little bit over 100 years ago new. But 4 decades after that, they introduced West Side Story, a modern interpretation of the famous Shakespearean play Romeo and Juliet. A few short years after that, we got our movie, 1961, and 60 years after that, Steven Spielberg managed to recreate his favorite musical for a new audience. You're welcome for taking you on a journey throughout nearly 300 years. Now, let's talk about this movie. In 1957, New York was flooded by 2 rival gangs obsessed with who owns what territory. These 2 gangs were the Jets, otherwise known as white guys, and the Sharks, otherwise known as Puerto Rican guys. Now every day, they fight, they hate, and they threaten their own lives. But amidst the endless fight lies Tony, a Jet that does not want anything to do with the fighting anymore, and Maria, the sister of a shark that he falls desperately in love with. When the 2 rival gangs find out about them, the 2 declare war on each other, but not before they dance around and snap their fingers. What's so weird about a musical this old is that you feel its age. You know what I mean? Modern musicals, you don't often question it because the music often blends in with what we hear on the radio. But the music in West Side Story is incredibly classic, and it feels like the 60s. So there's a rush of nostalgia watching this movie because there's no spin on the music. They didn't reinvent it like I somehow expected them to do. They just redid the same stuff with better song recording equipment, and because of that, this film feels accurately placed in the golden age of the 50s. And even though I wouldn't necessarily say that it's my favorite musical of 2021, I will say it may be the best made from a technical level. Everybody in this film, especially the actors, were absolutely putting their all into these roles. I can't even imagine what they had to go through to prepare for how much energy was required for some of these dance sequences, all of which were performed with jaw-dropping precision. And the vocal talent from everybody involved was absolutely a shock to me. They all sounded fantastic. Who knew that Ansel Elgort had that level of vibrato? But even after what we see on screen, such as the incredible display of singing and dance, we also have to commend the production designer and the cinematographer who did their due diligence in turning the set of this film into something that both feels somewhat like a stage, but also big, expansive, and believably like New York in the late 50s, which I almost want to say the older film did a good job at that as well. It's said that Spielberg loved the original film, and when it comes down to replicating what that did all those years ago, you gotta commend this one. Because even though it's a little bit over 2.5 hours long, I was pretty darn engaged with the film from beginning to end, and certainly didn't want to pause it. Now, once again, this has never been, nor will ever be, my favorite musical. At least half of the songs or more, I don't really care about. I mean, the actors and the musical compositions are incredible, no doubt, but you won't come out of the film singing every single song. You'll remember exactly 2, for sure. Tonight, tonight, of course, and I feel pretty. There's a few others in there like G, Officer Krupke, and Tony's solo, Maria, but the main ones are Tonight and I Feel Pretty. And out of 12 plus songs, that's just not enough, but trust me, the message of racism is not lost on me. And it sucks that I can accurately say that it's still as relevant today as it was when West Side Story first came out. But even though this is not my favorite musical, a lot of those technical feats may be enough to bump up the score, so let's take a look at that. From a technical, unbiased perspective, I have very little to complain about here. There was so much heart, love, and grace thrown into this film from nearly every vantage point. The acting is pristine, the singing is even better, the dancing, jaw-dropping, the production design, cinematography, editing, everything. It was all fantastic. One of the areas that I gave good points to, but not exactly perfect, was chemistry. And that's just kind of because this story is a love at first sight thing. And from there on forward, everything has to move so quickly. And when you do that, you kind of forego that slow buildup of chemistry and connection. What they have in this film is fine, and on paper it makes sense as to why it's a modern interpretation of Romeo and Juliet, but I didn't always believe that they were soulmates because of how quickly things went. But at the end of the day, that's still a very small complaint, because my unbiased score wound up at 90%. As for how I personally felt about the movie, or my biased score, it's not quite as high, because again, it's not my favorite musical. But I have mad respect for everything that they did with the film anyway. And like I said, I did find it difficult to look away or pause, simply because of how well it was made. So my bias score is 86%, meaning that when we combine the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 88%. 88 out of 100 possible stars. Yeah, so this is a solid film for sure. One of Spielberg's better films in the last few years, which was bound to happen because in a lot of ways, it's a bit of a passion project for him. But hey, don't take my word on it. Let me know your thoughts on this film in the comments down below. And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with the next review. And until then, peace out.